This video should have been about one of the key milestones in my pregnancy, but since it ended in miscarriage, I'll be talking to you about my experience of grief, how I coped with it in those early days, and how I'm still coping with it 5 months later. I know grief is a highly individual journey. No two experiences are the same, but I hope some of the words that I share will resonate with any of you in a similar situation. And if you're lucky enough not to be, that it sheds some light on what someone you know may be going through. I think Western societies are so ill-equipped to deal with grief. We assume that it is neat and tidy and linear as per the 5 stages of grief model, so denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, but it just doesn't work that way. It is messy and dark and ugly. There is no end date. And people really struggle with that when they're faced with someone who is clearly grieving. They tell you that time heals, and while time does help, it doesn't make you forget. You learn to live with your loss, you adapt, but you're not the same person. It changes you forever. And I'm certainly not the same woman who got pregnant earlier this year. I'm not the same person who started out on this journey 5 years ago. There is no end date, there is no rule book, there is no right or wrong way to behave. We are all just navigating through this one step at a time, whether that is 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day, whatever it is, you just cling on to get through to the next stage. I remember in those early days, after finding out, I just was so numb, so much so that when our gynecologist wished us a good day, I just didn't turn around and say, well, that was a really inappropriate thing to say to someone after telling them that there's no heartbeat. And that numbness, the sadness, the disbelief and shock that continued, I cried a lot for weeks on end. I hid under the duvet. I watched a lot of TV. I worked my way through 6 seasons of Dawson's Creek because I needed something familiar and also something that didn't have a surprise pregnancy plot twist, as so many series seem to do these days. I raged. I was so angry. And that rage still bubbles up sometimes. I still get triggered. I worked as well, and that helped a little bit until it didn't. I was able to confide in my boss, and that really was a source of comfort for which I'll be eternally grateful, because I know that's not the case for everyone. I needed to withdraw from the world, and I couldn't even talk to my parents for about a month or so on the phone. I think hearing their voices, the sadness, the disappointment, the heartache, it just would have broken me even further. What did help me was speaking to people who had been through a miscarriage, or those who were just extremely empathetic, people who could hold space for me and let me express myself, get out all of that anger and just disappointment and heaviness, the darkness, the fear, the self-loathing, without judging me, without offering any unsolicited advice, without trying to fix me, because there is just no way to fix someone who's grieving. All you can do is just listen and be there to support them and hold their hand, basically. What else helped? Crying a lot. It was just very cathartic. I tended to do that in nature when I went out on walks, and it was summer at that time, so the sun, feeling it on my skin, just seeing all the greenery around, that was very healing. Counselling as well. I happened to have a session with a clinic counsellor the day after I had the big public bleed, and that helped me to unlock a lot of trauma that I didn't know that I was feeling. I didn't even label it as trauma. All those years of trying and failing to conceive. I had a big cry with her when she said, well, of course you're feeling this way because you went through a lot. And it's very validating when you hear that from someone in very gentle, compassionate tones. And so I'm very glad that session just happened to fall on that day. It was very coincidental. Excuse me, I didn't expect. You see, this is the thing with grief. It's 5 months later, so it's still quite raw. And I get unexpectedly triggered. And you'd think it's the obvious stuff, pregnancy announcements, seeing bumps on social, seeing kids playing in the park, but also things like this, just reliving someone saying that you went through something huge. and it is going to take some time to recover. So that is all I would say to end this with. If you are grieving, if you have lost your precious baby, that you're not alone. Even if you don't want to talk to anyone about it, you can still consume podcasts, there are books, there are films, there's a whole Instagram community, there are apps that you can tap into that will make you feel like you're not the only person in the world going through this. And I would say take it one day at a time. That has become my life mantra, actually. We don't know what the future will bring. We don't know how we're going to feel. I mean, I didn't expect to burst into tears. It is a very fragile time, so take it easy on yourself and do what you need to do to just get through to the next stage. It will get better in time. This is probably not the best demonstration of it, but you will feel better in time, and you're not alone.